Howdy guys, welcome to She'll Be Right Garage and the second install of the Ghia Mini Resto. Last episode we started getting some of the plastic panels under some primer. We need to get the rest of our panels under primer, so let's go and get up to speed. So here's our panels all set aside that need to be repaired with some primer. We need to pay particular attention to the boot lid. We've got some holes here on the top for the spoiler, and we have our template from the original boot lid, so we need to mark and drill a new hole here. We also need to do the same across the back because we've got some holes for the gear garnish. We've also got a few small marks and dings which I'm hoping will show up on the camera that we will need to scuff back and use a little bit of filler to correct. Placement now fits beautifully. And now the spoiler fits beautifully. And so with this bottom bar, we're not too stressed about getting it perfectly. It's full of a lot of deep gouges and scratches underneath, and because the cars are pretty low from factory, it's probably going to happen again. But we do have a hell of a lot of stone chips and scratches on the front surface, and we just want to make sure that we paint that all up so it looks half decent when looking from the outside. And of course, whenever I've used a rough grit of paper, I'll go around the outside areas with some finer grit such as this 400 wet and dry. It's enough to give a little bit of a scotch up to the surface just to make sure that the high fill primer continues to stick, because naturally when I spray it, it's going to go beyond the initial parts where I first sanded it. Now we have all of our panels in their first lot of guide coat and primer. Happy bloody days. So now moving on, we can finally lay down our first bit of colour under this bonnet. Now the factory never really bothered with putting any clear coat or shine underneath these bonnets, so we're going to follow suit and do much the same thing. So all we're going to do is scotch it back with some 600 grit wet and dry sandpaper here, and then lay down some base coat only, which means later on in the day we can flip him over and then take care of the top side properly. And here's our lovely result. Moving forward, it's time to take care of this rear quarter, and we'll paint the quarter and the top of the bonnet at the same time. So a few of you may have already seen in previous videos, namely Sleazy, the use of guide coat. So I'll give you a quick close-up of how it works and why we're doing it. So as we look at this section of pillar here, we need to get rid of all of the black, and as soon as the black has disappeared, we know that we have a dead smooth surface. So we'll give it a wipe clear, it's nearly gone. And now that the actual black has disappeared, we know we've got something ready for painting. So it's important that I use either a cross hatch or a circular motion, generally speaking. And that will get rid of most imperfections that you see along panels like these. What I'm taking care of now is some rather deep scratches that were caused by the longboard when I wanted to get rid of all of the loose and flaking paint. And before we know it, everything will be completely ready for its first coat of base. And after just a few short minutes, we can see a lovely portion of quarter panel is ready to go. And despite its patchy looking appearances, it is dead straight, and that will come up beautifully. And for the top of the bonnet, the only thing we need is a light scuff back with some 600 grit. Here we are, fresh off the gun. Our prep work now finally starting to pay off. You beauty. Righto guys, it's now time we turn our attention to some of these mechanicals. We need to do a mechanical service, we need to do an external cooler for the gearbox, we've got to bleed these brakes, and we've got to sort out our LPG. Let's start off with the LPG. We've got Andrew from West End who very conveniently comes out on site. He's now taking care of what he has to restamp this tank for another 10 years. So if all our gauges and accessories removed, we can inspect inside the tank, make sure that there's no rust, some new O-rings, and we're about good to go. And just on this LPG system, if you have a look at these little red injectors here, they are the LPG injectors going straight into the manifold here. So in actual fact, this is a fairly efficient LPG system. It runs off the computer of the car. So being gas injected, I'm actually pretty happy that we've decided to keep it. Sounds like a pot now. Very happy with that system. Very happy indeed. First up is our oil change. Always make sure the old seal comes off with the old filter. And always remember the light smear of fresh oil on the seal, and make sure you don't over tighten it. Good. And our next service item is a fuel filter replacement. We've got some pretty old and stale fuel in there, so we've run it low. We want to get that gone and put a new filter in, just to be on the safe side. The smell is absolutely putrid. And that's easy done. So next up, it's time to install this external cooler. This is one that I had floating around. It'll fit in nicely like that, so let's get it sorted. We'll be using the air conditioning lines along with some cable ties to mount the bottom part of it, and we're just using some double-sided tape to create some protection for the line so it never rubs through. Go. And to make life easier on the radiator side, since we need to get access to these lines, we're going to pop this span setup out of the way, nice and easy. And after plumbing in our rubber hoses, you can see the top one is ready to line up here, and we've got the same down the bottom. So all we need to do is pop these out, screw them all in, fill this up with a bit of oil, and there's our easy install. And we've got ourselves a quick check for leaks. Everything's looking good. Beauty. Now time to bleed our brake system. We'll get rid of our old fluid and pump some new stuff all the way through. Down. Up. Down. Down. Up. Looking pretty clear now. Down. Up. We now have ourselves a rock hard fettle peel. Happy days. And whilst we were busy servicing the car, we found an issue with our left hand sway bar link. As you can see, got quite a bit of free play here. We've also discovered that the centre bearing for the dry shaft has also had its day. And whilst we're waiting for these parts to turn up so we can install them in the next video, we may as well give the underside of this car a quick gurney just to wrap up our servicing and have it clean and tidy, ready for rego. And we're done. Alrighty guys, moving forward, our painted panels are well and truly cured, so it's time to get this bonnet on for the final time, and then we're going to do our final coat of primer on our plastics on our bumpers. So back onto these plastics, you may have noticed from earlier we've got ourselves a red guide coat here. That is intentional because I like to use black as the final guide coat. Now you may not be able to see it too well on camera, but there's a few imperfections here. That was from scratching up the plastic. We're now going to sand it back and we're going to see how it looks. Alright, as you can see there guys, we've got our little low spot that we need to continue sanding. That's because we had to scratch up some of the cracks that were in the paint and we left just exposed plastic underneath. As we keep going, you can see there's a second spot that has now presented itself. Once again, we keep on going till all this red has disappeared, and then we use our final primer coat. Now we'll quickly smash through this whole lot, then get our final lot of primer done and dusted. Here is the last of our panels, finally under their last coat of primer and black guide coat. You beauty. Alrighty guys, time to move on and take care of this tint. We've got Nick from Mr. Cool taking care of it. Thank you, Nick.
Hello, how are you?
So we've got this old tint that he's got to rip off first. We're going to get ourselves a ceramic coating afterwards, which I'm told is one of the best things to have.
Here, what we're doing, steaming the film off. We're using a steamer to get all the film off. That way the film it doesn't go brittle. It like elasticises the material. That way the film comes off a lot easier.
Here we are out in the sun, all done and dusted. What a world of difference that makes. Well, time to remove our headlining now. We've got ourselves a replacement, so we'll just swap that whole thing out. And we should be able to get most of this interior sorted now as well. And here we are with our two headliners side by side. On our right hand side we've got the original Ghia unit. You can see the black bracketry for the sunglass holder, and on either side we've got some more holes for the map reading lights under the sun visors. On our left is a regular Falcon unit, so we need to open up all of these holes and swap everything over. The Falcon unit has actually been retrimmed, so that's the cheapest and easiest way for the moment. After swapping everything over, there's a world of difference between these two. Here we are with an absolute world of difference. Check it out. And courtesy of one of my mates named Paul Story, we now have a working sunglass holder. He did see it in the first episode and that I wasn't going to bother with it, and he very kindly donated this one to the cause. Bloody legend. Alrighty guys, that pretty much has to wrap us up for this episode. We did have some intentions to refit this bonnet cable and complete the interior altogether. However, upon trying to fit this, we have discovered that the fuse panel is actually broken. It contains the mounting bracket for this cable. So we need to do another wrecking yard trip. So make sure you join us next week. We are on the downhill run. It is going to be a mad dash. At the end of next week's video, we're going to have this car completely ready and sorted for rego. Make sure you join us then. Cheers guys. Attention to the boot lid, and got the microphone the wrong way like a grong. Fuck. Motherfucker. Son of a bitch. Fuck you. Fucking get in the fucking hole, you cunt. Motherfucker.
Story of your life.
Standard.
Get in the hole. Can't do it.
You're married, you're worse than me.
Yeah, not good there.
Come on, fucker. Son of a bitch. Get the fuck out, will ya?